Good evening. The time is 7:33. The date is February 25th, 2025. I'd like to call to order the February 25th meeting of the Norwalk Common Council. If you'll please rise and join me in pledging allegiance to our nation's flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Burnett,
Present.
Mr. Goldstein,
Here.
Mr. Lopez,
Present.
Ms. Najolski Eichner,
Present.
Ms. Smith,
Here.
Ms. Ayers. Present. Mr. Seed,
Present.
Mr. Wiggins,
Here.
Ms. Young,
Here.
Ms. Edie,
Here.
Ms. Winterstrand, here. Ms. Dunn,
Here.
Mr. Sutton,
Present.
Mr. Frere,
Here.
Ms. Shanahan,
Here.
15, we have a quorum.
Okay, we have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is the acceptance of minutes of the regular meeting of February 11th. Do I have a motion? Ms. Smith, are there any corrections, deletions, or omissions?
Mr. Mayor, I did see one
Ms.
on,
Winterstand?
I believe it was on the bottom of page 3, where Mr. Freer's comment of, it's the paragraph that starts with Mr. Freer. And I believe it should read grand list, not grant list, so
Okay.
GRAND.
Okay. Any other corrections, omissions, or deletions? Seeing none, all in favor of the minutes as corrected? Opposed? Abstentions? 2 abstentions, Ms. Young and Mr. Goldstein. Next item on the agenda is the special approval of the minutes of the special meeting of February 11th, 2025. Do I have a motion? Mr. Burnett, are there any corrections, deletions, or omissions? Ms. Smith?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I do have one on page 4. Last paragraph, second sentence, should read, my comments should read grants, not growth.
Any other corrections? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as corrected? Opposed? Abstentions? 2 abstentions, Ms. Young and Mr. Goldstein.
And me as well,
Yes.
sir. Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry?
Mr.
Wiggins.
Okay, you abstained, Mr. Wiggins? Yeah, so there's
Yes.
3. Okay. Next is public participation. Anybody wishing to address the council, if you haven't already signed up on the list. We do have quite a few people here this evening. We also have people online. So what we're going to do is we'll take 3 here, 3 online, 3 here, 3 online. So it'll be fair to everybody. So if you'll call the first person.
Jessica Cordes,
There's a 3-minute limit on the comments, and it's limited to items that are in the agenda. I imagine that most people are here to speak on the budget, so.
Sure thing, Mayor. Mayor, my name is Jessica Cordes. Some of you may know me, some of you may not. I have 2 kids in the Norwalk Public School System. I'm a lawyer, I'm an advocate, I'm a voice for people that don't have one. My comments are probably going to be different than some of the people's in this room today. We have, over the last several years, consistently heard fund the budget, right? Fund the budget, give the Board of Ed exactly what they want, how much they want. Let's give them everything they need. But I have repeatedly voiced concerns about some of these things. There's limited transparency into where that money goes. We have buckets of information that have come out of the budget. Salaries, 160 million, benefits, 41 million, professional and other technical services, property services, other services, supplies and materials, equipment, other objects, transfers and adjustments. We never know what's in those budgets. And I understand the laws and the restrictions behind what can and can't be disclosed and who the Board of Ed is obligated to be accountable to. But there are a lot of people in this room and there are a lot of people watching, and most of you either have children in the school system or have had children in the school system. And I want those dollars to go to our kids. I want the parents and the teachers in this room to feel as though their children are receiving the benefit of $255 million of taxpayer money. Some is grants, sure, but it becomes challenging when there is zero accountability and zero transparency to consistently just say, blanketly fund the budget. So Mayor Rilling, I think you are in a unique position, maybe different than the other people on this council, to be able to demand some of the transparency that I'm requesting. You have a seat at the table at the Board of Ed. You have the ability, quite honestly, to be able to disclose line item spending of the Board of Ed. And I would encourage you and I would ask for a promise to the town, to the taxpayers, to the parents, and most importantly, to our children, that the line item spending is disclosed completely for the last 2 spending cycles. It's impossible for us to know. It's impossible for every one of these council members to know whether or not they should approve a budget. When we have Estrella's team that travels, that spends nights in hotels, that goes to seminars, those dollars are coming and being pulled away from our children. We have a team of 7
30 seconds
people.
remaining.
I'm sorry? We have a team of 7 people. I'm not entirely sure what they do. I'm not entirely sure how they actually benefit our children, but I think there are probably a lot of principals either listening here today in the room or online that could probably use those dollars. Of the $160 million
10 seconds left.
of the budget, how much of it goes to her team? So Mayor, I would ask you as the shepherd of our town, the shepherd of our people, and the protector very much of our children and our education system, to make sure that we have the transparency that we need as parents, that the education system has the transparency they need, and that the council has the transparency they need to be able to approve this budget. Thank you.
Minutes.
Thank you very much.
Nick Zerzen.
Hi, everyone. Nick Zerzan. I live on 1 Jean Avenue. I have 3 children that all public schools, 1 at Fox Run, 2 at Ponus. And I may be sort of the antithesis of what you just heard, but first I'd like to thank you guys all for your service to Norwalk. I know that you guys all care deeply about Norwalk and are doing your best to make it as good as it can be. And I think you've done a fantastic job putting the team together. And I think the central office did a bunch of cuts. And I think that the bottom line, I come here kind of hat in hand as a last minute, you know, I'm not a good public speaker. I don't do this for a living. I'm a small business owner. My wife works for a nonprofit. But, you know, I care deeply about our kids and the kids in the community and the ones that don't have someone to speak for them. And I think everything's trending in the right direction. I think you've put together an amazing team. I see every year, I see progress at the schools under very challenging times. You know, we're facing some growing pains in the city, the country, and the community. And I think, you know, we're making lemonade out of lemons. And you've done a really good job. And, you know, the importance of the wonderful principals we have and the teachers and, you know, the cafeteria workers, the security people, all are uniquely qualified and in a position that they can have a transformative influence on our children. And so I'm kind of just pleading whatever you can do to, you know, I know the budget's kind of set, but anything that we can do to make sure that we do not lose any of these amazing people that you have put in place to help our children. It comes down to, you know, what's a life worth, you know? We don't really know exactly when we're gonna be presented with a chance or a teacher or a secretary or someone in the cafeteria line, but with a child that needs them there to help them at that particular time. And, you know, I know that this happens probably every day in our schools, and the person that's cut because of the salary, you know, that may have a really horrific consequence. And, you know, it's. I
30
don't wanna
seconds
be-
remaining.
I don't want to be nickel smart and dollar stupid, or however that translates to a life of a child that will be affected by, you know, trying to cut the budget too much. Grateful to be here and thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Jane Wilkins.
Good evening, council members, Mayor Rilling, and members of the community. My name is Jane Wilkins. I reside at 8 Island Drive in Norwalk. I have had the privilege of serving as the principal of Naremac Elementary School for nearly 9 years. But my commitment to Norwalk's children spans over 34 years, dating back to 1990, when I was an intern student teacher and a long-term substitute. I'm also a proud third-generation Norwalker. My parents, my children, and I are all lifelong residents who graduated from Norwalk High School. So I guess you could say I'm pretty invested. Over the years, I've seen the pendulum swing, fully funded, then cut, restored, then cut again. When my own children were in school, I stood at podiums like this one, rallying with parents, pleading with city leaders not to dismantle programs or cut staffing in ways that would harm our kids. I've worked in schools that had what they needed to do this job well, and I've worked in schools so lean that copy paper was a luxury and professional development was non-existent. Each school was left to do their own thing. What I've also seen time and time again is a belief among some, particularly those who've never really done the work in schools, that our schools can simply do more with less. To them, I say, come to Naremac for a day. I'll give you the charge of the cafeteria. You can come for a week. I can give you a smaller group of easier to manage students, and I guarantee you, you will have a different outlook and appreciation of what our schools need. I remember a conversation I had with the former superintendent, Manny Rivera, some of you may remember him, about the state of our schools when he first arrived at MPS. I was working in central office at the time as a teacher. He expressed deep concern about the lack of professional development for teachers and the absence of the systems and structures necessary to move a school district forward. There were literally about 15 people in central office at the time. I was a teacher that had a seat at the table with the superintendent. That's how lean it was. I told him that in many ways, Norwalk Public Schools was like a neglected house, left in disrepair for so long that fixing it seemed nearly impossible. It was no surprise that he left the district after serving as superintendent for just 1.5 years. But we have made progress. We have built those structures and systems. And now when our students are making forward gains, when we are competing in a fast-changing world, we cannot afford to go backwards. I urge you to remain open to providing additional funding for the Board of Education, because to cut any school positions now would be to undo years of progress, putting our children, our future at a disadvantage. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Manzi, okay, who do we have?
Erica De Palma.
That's an online, Mr. Manzi. We need Erica to mute herself. Are you to do that?
Thank you. Erica De Palma, 110 Perry Avenue. I had the privilege of serving on the Board of Education, but sadly, I did so during COVID, and I saw firsthand the impact that COVID had on our students and our staff. And I struggled each budget season during that period to have the city recognize the school system's challenges. I came in with the benefit of my husband serving on the Common Council, so it did not escape me the challenges that you all are facing today and responding to the needs of each department. But I did struggle with the need to increase the rainy day fund every single year that we came to you for funding. And it's reached a point of excess. I'm asking you to recognize that the role of local government is to prioritize our fire department, our police force, and the education of our children. I'm asking you to recognize that there's an excess here. I'm asking you to recognize that the residents who come forward and tell you that our staff is spending excessively because they're doing things like traveling don't understand that the budgets are transparent and they have been handed to you at a very granular line item level, and that much of the travel is funded by grants. I'm asking you to recognize that we're not asking you to take funding away from our fire and our police departments. We're asking you to tap into our rainy day budget. Now is the time to do so. It's been years in the making. And I thank you for recognizing how long this conversation has been going on and how much of a need it is right now to respond to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ashley Goliath.
Can you hear me?
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Rilling and members of the Common Council. My name is Ashley Goliath. I reside at 5 Cliffview Drive, and I'm a member of the Board of Education. I am also a Norwalk Public Schools parent of a first grader at Concord Magnet School. I'm here to advocate for an increase to the recommended cap that was set on the Board of Ed budget by the Common Council Finance and Claims Committee. In January, the Board of Ed approved a 9.7% increase to our budget for next year. Earlier this month, the Finance and Claims Committee recommended 4%. I sincerely ask you to consider an increase to this number. The impact on our students will be significant, with reductions in programs and staff that have been part of the steady improvement of our district in recent years. I'd actually like to speak about my own child's experience thus far in Norwalk Public Schools and how it would be vastly different if cuts needed to be made to adjust to the 4% that's on the table this evening. There are 20 children in my child's class, and they have a paraprofessional along with her fantastic teacher. 2 adults to a group of 20 first graders is a good ratio, but this would not likely be the case for next year's first graders with a 4% increase. Class sizes are likely to be larger, and the number of paras in each building will be reduced. On another note, reading has not come easily to my child. The DIBELS assessment evaluates performance on the literacy skills needed to become a successful reader. My daughter's DIBELS score in September was below benchmark in the needs some support category. At her conference in November, we learned that her teacher was already doing intervention and tracking her progress. My daughter also worked with the reading specialist in her building. Her January score increased by 74 points. She is at benchmark because of the intervention her teacher was able to do and the time she spent with the specialist at school. This would again likely not be the case for a similar student next year at 4%. With larger class sizes and no para, her teacher would not be able to do this intervention work. The reading specialist would likely be serving multiple buildings and would not be helping a child like mine if others were well below benchmark and in more need of support. Lastly, in contrast to her reading, my child loves math and is quite good at it. Last year and this year, she's been given opportunities for math enrichment with the school's gifted and talented teacher, another opportunity that would likely be lost next year at the 4% increase. I hope in sharing this, I've given a concrete example of how excellent our schools are and what we stand to lose. And this is for my child who is, as far as we know, neurotypical and is not a multi-language learner. For our students with IEPs and 504 plans and our MLL students, the services we provide are invaluable. And in the case of IEPs and 504s, mandated by the law. Our students deserve opportunities for intervention when they are struggling and enrichment when they are excelling. They deserve and need access to counseling services and a nurse in their building who isn't.
30 seconds remaining.
It's our students who lose out when we fail to fully fund the budget approved by the Board of Ed. I do understand the implications with regard to property taxes, and I continue to encourage you to consider how we can use the rainy day fund to offset the impact on taxes. Thank you so much for your dedication to Norwalk and for your careful consideration of the city's budget this evening.
Thank you.
Dave Cahill.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you so much. My name is David Cahill of 14 Broadview Terrace, and I'm a proud parent of 2 NPS students. I've attended these meetings since the latest school budget crisis began and have been inspired by our community's passion in fighting for the funding our schools so desperately need. So I'm here to phrase some of those previous points in more stark terms to help drive them home, specifically for the operational budget. There are a large number of us who are extremely dissatisfied with the Board of Ed, our superintendent, and this negotiation process. We all know how we got here. Pandemic special grants were not wound down and future budgets were irresponsibly built on these temporary funds. And 2 years ago, when that money ran out, the superintendent presented the first budget crisis, requesting a large increase, and after many hearings, only part of it was granted. Not what we wanted, but we chalked it up to the painful adjustments that needed to happen. At that time, I started hearing what sounded like frivolous spending, but I didn't follow up. And now here we are, again, 2 years later. The superintendent asked for a 9.7% increase, knowing the historical approval rate is much lower. And the mayor and the common council warned that property tax hikes are the only solution, scaring us away from a compromise. And the alternative? Cuts that eliminate staff and force schools to share nurses and vice principals? This is the best this body can do? Where's your creativity? Where's your leadership? So I'm here pleading with you to go back to the table and scrutinize every line in the proposed operational budget for waste. Offer multiple tiered proposals that show us true compromise and that prioritizes school-based budgets and in-school staff. Because like last time, I'm hearing about more wasteful spending. I just asked the superintendent and Board of E in their meeting tonight, how many assistant administrators do you really need that the previous superintendent did not to be successful? How much does special events like convocation cost, and with cutting back pay the salary of one para? How much do hired consultants and event speakers cost, and would eliminating them pay for one nurse? And in the spirit of compromise, Mr. Mayor and Common Council, how many counselors and coaches would be saved if we don't purchase a $1.1 million tiny plot of land near Matthews Park? Let's add up all the waste and see what and who can be saved. And what's the worst part about this mess? While you play budget chicken, our kids pay the price. So please figure this out, or frankly, you'll lose my vote and many people like me.
30
I'm
seconds
a
remaining.
lifelong Democrat who has supported many of you before, but this failure is unacceptable. Please do this for our kids and fund the operational bond at a reasonable percentage increase. Thank you for your time.
Mary Ellen Flaherty Ludwig.
Good evening, Common Council and the Mayor. I'm Mary Ellen Flaherty Ludwig, live on 89 Soundview Avenue. I'm a retired teacher. I am a current Board of Education member. I want to start by just a shout out to all of you, especially the mayor. I've observed these budgets for 3 years now, and I truly see an abiding support of education. It's a tough job. It's a heavy weight for all of you and for all of us at the Board of Education to know that what we decide, how we come together affects the teachers, the children, the parents, and the quality of how they can learn. Two things I want to say. First, the health of the Norwalk school system. We know that our graduation rates are up, our chronic absentee is down. A key thing to look at is how are our K-3 kids doing? Ashley just mentioned her daughter in that position, that one. There's a phrase that's often used, we learn to read from K-3, and after 3rd grade, we read to learn. And so many educators look at that little period in the K through 12 spectrum, like, how are we doing there? And the truth is we are doing really well. I have a report here of DIBELS 8, and our kids, a large portion of them are hitting benchmark and above benchmark, and they are scoring favorably with national norms. That I mean that they're better than the national norms. Second thing I want to say is it's a big decision tonight. You're actually voting on what the cap is going to be. I attended the finance meeting, and I know your recommendation is 4%. My ask is that you push that, add 0.5 to that, add 0.4 to that. The CFO in the finance meeting gave us the numbers and of what would happen if we went to 4.5. We went to 4.4. What would happen to the taxpayers, which I'm one of them? And it's a really small amount of increase, but it would be a huge amount of increase for the teachers and the students. So that's my ask. Push it just a little bit more.
30 seconds remaining.
Thank you very much, and I really thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Amanda Robbins. Amanda?
Hi, I'm Amanda Robbins. I reside at 4 Shalene Road, just down the road. This is my first time speaking tonight. I've attended a few of these meetings on Zoom. And because you're all here, thank you all for being here and voting tonight. Told my husband to put the kids to bed and that I was coming to the meeting tonight. So I do appreciate you being here. This is my first year as a parent in the Norwalk Public School System. I have lived in Norwalk for 6 years. I'm an abiding taxpayer. We have used the Parks and Rec to our heart's delight and the public library services and had tours of the firehouse. So we are definitely in love with the town of Norwalk. And it has been a very difficult transition for my family this year into the Norwalk Public School System as a kindergartner. And I'm looking forward to my 3-year-old joining the NPS family eventually. I am a leader of our moms community. I've been the president, treasurer, and caring committee member of our Norwalk Moms Club. That's moms offering moms support. And I know from a lot of them too that everybody's concerned. It's a time of deep anxiety and distress for a lot of families in the family setting, in a local setting, a state setting, and so forth. I know the proposed closure of NECC, where a lot of pre-K students receive very many supports in one building with dedicated staff at an adaptive and safe playground, is extremely distressing. And I also know that closing that facility will put additional strain on our already strained elementary schools that will lovingly accept and expand themselves as much as they can to accommodate these wonderful students that need our support. I do want to learn more. It's my job to learn more about where my tax money is going, and I appreciate that all of you will be here to help me in that process. And it is concerning to me that I am paying my taxes and my school governance council is asking for funds and my PTA is asking for funds and my classroom teacher is asking for wipes and Kleenex. It's a lot to imagine that on my current
30 seconds
income-
remaining.
Sorry, thank you. My family's current income, that we can not only pay our taxes, but be asked to extend further and further to accommodate all these changes. And the idea of sharing nurses, principals, and counselors will sacrifice our children's physical and emotional support at a very important time. So I would also encourage every little bit helps. And if there's an opportunity to use our rainy day funds at this time so that we can responsibly make funding choices and sustainable budgets in the future, I hope that that's a possibility that you will all consider this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Isabella Frey.
My name is Isabella Frey of 71 Beacon Street.
And my name is Shane Shupka, 103 George Avenue.
And we are 8th graders at Nathan Hale Middle School. And there are several things in our schools that we value and we can't bear to let go of.
One thing that we value is our Dean of Students, Ms. Peckham. Ms. Peckham helps run the school and makes it a much better place. She helps with events such as school dances and a bunch of fundraisers. She also helps make the school and decorate it and makes it such a better place. She also helps kids feel safe. She checks in with kids and gives them like a pillar they can support on. If we remove Ms. Peckham from the school, kids could lose the support pillar from their school, which means we cannot get rid of Ms. Peckham.
Another thing that's come to my attention is that some related arts teachers might be let go due to budget. a few related arts classes such as band and orchestra are really important to our development, as we can go there and we can learn how to play a whole new instrument. And another related arts class is gifted and talented, which I and Jane are in. And if gifted and talented is evicted, then how are we supposed to, why do we have to suffer why do we have to suffer by not being able to learn because our intellectual might be a bit higher than others? Thank you.
Online, we have Vera Maya.
And I'm from Nathan Hale Middle School, and I'm going to talk about
We're not able to hear that.
Can you unmute yourself, please?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Larry, we can't hear.
Can you hear us?
Now we can.
Thank you. Okay. Start again. Hi, my name is Via Maya. I live on 8 Knob Hill Road, and I'm here I'm an 8th grader at Nathan Hale Middle School, and I'm going to talk about the Dean of Students and why that position still exists. Miss Peckham, our Dean of Students, is always there for students. She convinces them that they can and will achieve an A or a better grade. She's always there as a friend, a coach, and sometimes as someone to push you forward. She always is there for us, even when we don't know it. Thank you.
Maria Mislinski.
While the speaker's coming to the podium, if there's anybody else online that wishes to speak, if you'll raise your hand, and we'll call you in order.
Hi, good evening. My name is Maria Mislinski. I live at 27 Park Hill Avenue. I have children at Wolf Pit. I'm on the PTA and the SGC there. I think other people have mentioned it tonight, but I'm curious to know, I would love to know, how did we get here? You know, I'm angry about it. Is it because of the BOE? Is it because of COVID funds, which sounds like maybe that's where this problem started? You know, where is the oversight of the BOE? Who is paying attention to these things? It feels like with the number that is proposed, it's sort of like it's not my problem. Like, well, this is a BOE problem, so we will give this number and then to the BOE, like, you guys have to figure it out now. So you're not the ones having to deal with the consequences of that number, right? Having to figure out which person are we going to let go? Which child are we going to not let have services? Which student is going to be affected because there's not a nurse there that day when they need them? It's easy to come up with I mean, I know it's not easy. It's a difficult decision, but it's easy for the number to come up and then push the consequences onto somebody else. You know, the kids are the ones that are going to feel the consequences of that number. The truth is, I feel that maybe it doesn't matter what all of us are coming up to say, that you've probably already made your decision and it's not going to change. And that's kind of a sad feeling. And my kid said, do you think they're going to change the number? And I said, honestly, no, I don't think they're going to change it. But I'm still going to go talk and hopefully maybe I'm proved wrong. And I would love to have that happen. But yeah, it's that figure it out message to me. It's like, well, what are they supposed to do when you give that number? Then it's all of this has to be figured out. But again, where is the oversight? Is somebody going to be paying attention so that we don't end up in this position again? So even if you were to fully fund it, still, who's going to figure it out and make sure we don't get in this position again? Because I've heard other people say that have been in Norwalk a long time, oh, we were in the same position years ago. I remember standing at this podium. So why are we here again this time? And while it's nice and sunny in NPS right now, and I think they're doing a great job, my kids love it, I've seen progress, you know, I feel like this budget cut is like a black cloud looming on the horizon. And if that happens, the cut happens and all of these consequences happen, you know, it's gonna be raining cats and dogs on our kids.
30 seconds
And
remaining.
that's where I think I'm asking for you to look again at the rainy day fund and try to use more of it to fix this. Our kids are looking to you to provide that umbrella, to protect them from that. And if you don't do it, these are the consequences that they have to deal with. You don't have to deal with it. You can just make that decision and then tell everybody else to figure it out. But I'm begging you to not do that, to look at the consequences and be part of that solution, not just part of the number and the dollar amount solution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Sarah Alexander.
Hello, my name is Sarah Alexander. I live at 24 Friendly Road in Norwalk, Connecticut. I want to thank everyone for being here, Common Council, Mayor Railing, and the opportunity to speak right now. I have been watching closely during this process. I have a second grader at the Wolf Pit Elementary. I also have a 4-year-old who we hope to one day join the ranks of that school. And this process has been very disheartening. I've watched on Zoom for the past couple of months, and I wanted to come here in person and lay eyes on all of you myself. Because honestly, what I have watched online is that I see a lot of apathetic faces, which is very frustrating. And I was nervous coming tonight because I was going to be emotional, but this is an emotional thing. My son had challenges reading last year, and his DIBEL scores scored below and needed intervention. Because of that intervention, and the principal, Mrs. Ahrens, and the vice principal, Mr. Santinello, and his incredible first grade teacher, Mrs. Bizinet, he succeeded and surpassed benchmark. This year, he also needs intervention because that's what some kids need. It's not a one-stop shop. It's not a single solution. Some of our children are going to need help every step of the way. And I don't know if he will need help every step of the way. But if these interventionists are taken away, there are real consequences. And I don't know if this is appropriate, but may I see a show of hands of you? Do any of you have students in the public schools right now? Thank you. Do any of your children require interventionists? Do you agree with these budget cuts? You do. I would love an opportunity to speak with you afterwards because that is something that I am shocked at. And I would love to learn more because that means I need to educate myself more because what I see last year when he had that interventionist and then that position was vacated because she went to another school, his scores immediately dropped. Immediately. And then because of his teacher and her efforts, she had a classroom of 20 students, and we met with her
30
and she
seconds
was so
remaining.
dedicated and she broke out into small groups because she was a seasoned veteran and she knew what to do in that situation when she didn't have the resources. What happens when there's a new teacher who doesn't understand what to do in that position and they don't have the resources or the support? These are real people with real consequences. And what I hope for each one of you Common Council members and for you, Mayor Rilling, that our students succeed because of your decisions, not in spite of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amanda de Miranda. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I want to advocate for the special need children. I'm a mother. I reside at 25 County Street. I've been in Norwalk for 3 years. I have 2 autistic children, one in Merrimack, very proud of that school, and one at NECC right now, a 3-year-old boy. And I'm very concerned because I don't know if you guys realize about the change that you guys gonna make, transferring those kids to the local elementaries and not having a safe playground. You know, my son, he elopes, right? So some children with autism, that's what they do. They elope. They don't have safety awareness. And it's a little shocking to me to see that you guys don't see that concern. You guys are transferring those kids to some elementaries that it's not fenced. And God forbid a tragedy happens, then what happens? So I ask you with all my heart as a mother of two autistic children, if you guys can consider giving all the elementaries the funds to equip the playgrounds to receive those children with communication boards, fans, adaptive swing for the kids in wheelchair, because it's already hard for parents dealing with that situation. And on top of that, to be concerned if their child they're going to elope, you know, when they go to school. So, you know, play is a very important part of a child's life. And I think you all can agree with that. Thank you so much. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dara Gomez.
Good evening, Mr. T.
Hello, everyone. My name is Medard Thomas. I reside at 27 Heron Road. Last week, the schools were closed due to the break, and my kids were off, right? And we're together the whole week. And on Monday, go back to work, and people were saying, you know, you look tired. How are you? Are you okay? Are you well? And my answer was, no, I'm not well. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. My heart rate was constantly up. I'm so tightly wound. I'm not doing 100%. It was a nightmare. The break was a nightmare. I didn't sleep at all. I didn't rest. My Apple Watch had a field day because it was constantly alerting me. Got to calm down, breathe. Now, let me explain a little bit more. My professional name is Mr. T, and I'm the proud principal of Concord Magnet School K-8. And the reason why I was very tightly wound is because right before we went on break, I found out that I had to cut about $500,000 out of my budget. And we are Norwalk's only K-8 school. We serve 4 to 14-year-olds. And what we're doing is it's working. The kids are extremely happy. The parents are grateful. I am beyond grateful. It's such an honor to be there. They always say the sign of a good school is when a principal sends their child to that school. And my two daughters, one who's at the high school and is ready because of her education at Concord Magnet School, and one who's currently at 7th grade, who is thriving as well. And my oldest son, who is in college, he went to Marvin and Nathan Hale and Norwalk High, and he is beyond prepared because of the Norwalk public school system. But now with this budget cut, what you're doing is you're forcing us to embrace mediocrity. I'm afraid that we're going to go back to the old days of irrelevance, when the schools struggled, when there are good people, teachers and administrators, but the resources weren't there. I can personally say that I have
30 seconds remain.
I've grown as a principal, I've grown as an individual because of the training and the work that we are doing here at the Norwalk Public School System. And I don't want Norwalk to be known as the place that runs a farm system for schools in Westport and New Canaan and Weston and all the other affluent towns. Because if we're not investing, all the training that the teachers are getting every single day, you know, at the end of the year, if they say, you know what, Norwalk is not going to really, Norwalk doesn't seem to care about education, then let me go to another district. where they value education a little bit more. So please, this Elon Musk attitude that I have to take in order to slash and burn my budget, I can't do it because I'm not him. I'm an educator. I am a people person. I love my children and I need your support. We need your support, please. Let's have pride where we work. Like I said, let's not embrace mediocrity because those days are long gone. So I beseech you, if you want me to go on bended knee, I will, but let's do what it takes to put our kids first. I thank you very much.
Thank you. Diane Lavricella.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Diane Lauricella, 21 Little Fox Lane. I know that you have been listening to many terrific and heartfelt discussions tonight. As I said during the operating budget meeting earlier on, I think with finance and claims a little while ago, at this time, I would ask that you do not lift the cap unless and until there is a line-by-line review of the budget, both on the city side as well as the Board of Ed. In the past, I have stated that I felt that there was fat in the Board of Ed budget, and I would like the parents and the people that spoke, the teachers and the principals, to look at the head office, the superintendent's office. I know that they are finally going to remove some of the overhead, the top-heavy, unusually top-heavy office, but I don't think they've gone far enough. So I beseech the teachers, the parents, to demand of Dr. Estrella and the Board of Ed that they continue. I do ask that their waste management and recycling, which hardly ever takes place in the school, be taken over by DPW, because it is silly to have two different entities almost under the same roof in a way. We have a trained person, they could do better, but the thing is, why don't you help relieve at least $100,000 a year in waste management and recycling and food scraps? Lastly, I just wanted to say that the city needs to look at its revenues more and increase revenues with true enforcement, with true zoning enforcement, with fines, and collect those fines and not wait a year or months for the fines. Lastly, we can go a long way both on the Board of Ed side and the City of Norwalk by making sure that our energy resources, as much as possible, much more than has been done, are actually created in the form of electrons on rooftops and carports and ground-based solar panels, as well as geothermal and heat pumps. We have to reduce our electricity and utility costs, and we are not doing
30
it
seconds remaining.
properly. So I know you have a lot of hard decisions to make, but let's really go more deeply in the revenue side and the cuts of things that are not being managed well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now, there's nobody else that has signed the sheet. I want to give everybody an opportunity to speak. If you have not signed the sheet and would like to address the council, now's the time to come down. Same goes for the people that are online. If you are deciding that you would like to speak, then if you would raise your hand. Yep, yeah, come down and sign. And if you could sign as well.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Sanger. I live at 3 Frostland Place. I have a 5-year-old daughter, Juliana, who is a kindergartner at Narragansett Elementary. I am fortunate enough to be the parent co-chair of the SGC over there, and I've really been enjoying, becoming involved and more educated on this whole process. I'm coming at this from a place of total ignorance. So it's been a fun learning experience. But that being said, I did want to just speak to some of the things that have been mentioned here tonight. And again, I don't necessarily have a full understanding of the particulars, but when you hear things about arts, I know that there was the students here mentioned orchestra as being a big thing that could potentially be on the chopping block, and specifically with the arts. Unfortunately, those are oftentimes the programs that end up, as the first to go because it's deemed that there's more vital areas that need those resources. But I would just encourage you all to, recognize that any cuts that are made now with the arts programs, or anywhere else, that these are going to have a ripple effect down the line for the lives of these students. And, we heard plenty of testimony here tonight about children with special needs that may be losing resources that are vital to their progression throughout life as a student. So, you cut one thing now, it could have, significant impacts down the line. So to the extent that you all are able to dip into the rainy day budget or to increase the cap, whatever means are available to you, please, I would implore you to just, not to say that you all aren't doing a great job and that it's not appreciated by many in the city, but when it comes to education and investing in our children's future, I don't think there's any better way to spend our resources as a city. So with that, I want to thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sorry, get out of your way. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Common Council. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Sue O'Shea, and I serve as a proud principal of Marvin Elementary School. This is a role that has given me the privilege of witnessing firsthand the impact that a quality education has had on the lives of our children. I've been working in the district for 34 plus years. So it's not the first time that we've had a budget cut, a budget crisis is what I'm calling this one. But it's the first time we've had one in a long time. But I'm coming before you today to urge that you allocate additional funding to the Board of Education, even during these challenging times. I recognize that you are in a difficult position. Every department in our city faces financial constraints, and the choices that you must make are not easy ones. However, the investment we make in children today determines the strength of our community tomorrow. And our children are the future business owners, doctors, teachers, and community leaders. Their success is directly linked to the resources we have provided to them. I'm going to skip down. Each principal has been asked to cut somewhere between 5 and 18 full-time equivalent positions. The success that we have been having in our schools is going to be impacted by those 5 to 18 positions. Our teachers work tirelessly, and they are waiting every day you walk in and they're looking at you, the ones that could be on the chopping block, looking at me with those eyes. And it's hard to walk in each day and to talk to them about the work that we're doing with children when they may not have a job. Without sufficient funding, we risk compromising the quality of the education we provide, which will have long-term effects on the city. An increase in funding would allow us to keep the hardworking staff in the positions that work directly with our children. Education is not an expense. It is an investment in our future. And when we prioritize education, we strengthen our entire city. I urge you to consider the long-term impact of your decision and to provide the Board of Education with an increase to give our children the education they deserve. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Online, we have Sophia Pogany. Could you unmute yourself, please?
Sophia, if you can unmute yourself. Sophia, I believe you're muted.
Yeah, Ms. Pogany, if you can unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Sophia, please unmute yourself.
There we go. Sophia Pogany again.
Simon, can you unmute the other Sophia?
Hello?
Okay, now we can hear you. Thank you.
Sorry about that. So, hi, my name's Sophia Pogany, and I am an 8th grader at Nathan Hale Middle School. I would like to start off by saying and talking about Miss Peckham, who is our Dean of Students. My classmates have spoken before, as you've seen, but she's not only the Dean of Students, but a person to talk to and a friend for so many people. Without her, I'm not sure if I would even be speaking with the confidence I have today. For related arts teachers, the programs we have at Nathan Hale might be something like band, orchestra, or theater arts. Without our related arts teachers, like the theater teachers, we will never be able to have a fun educational experience. To add, there have been plenty of people like me who have found love through these programs. So I never thought I would be in love with the theater department as much as I am, but through these programs at Nathan Hale, especially the teachers, I've now found love. I'm scared if we cut these very important people from our schools, our future generations will never have the experience I did as I'm stepping foot at Norwalk High next year. Please consider stepping into our shoes and seeing if you would feel the same way we did if your favorite teachers and your future generation's favorite teachers were cut away and you will never have the experience of living that dream that I am. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. So we have nobody else signed up to speak. We'll ask one more time if anybody in the audience wishes to speak or anybody online. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you all for coming out. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is resignations and appointments. Under resignations, we have Doris Ash from the Board of Assessment Appeals, Jane Walters, Board of Assessment Appeals, and Maria Formanek, Board of Assessment Appeals. Under appointments, we have one appointment to the Board of Assessment Appeals regular. If I could have a motion for Mr. Peter Bang. I'm sorry?
Yes, I'd like to move Peter Bang to the Board of Assessment Appeals.
Okay. The motion has been made. Sorry, I didn't see the hand here. Any comment or discussion, Mr. Creer? Any comment or discussion?
I'd like just to add that Mr. Bang is a 30 years of experience in the investment banking and insurance industry, and also involved heavily in business formation. I think that he would be an excellent person to be in the Board of Assessment Appeals. I think it'll be invaluable on this Board of Appeals.
Thank you. Any further comment or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of appointing Mr. Peter Bang to the Board of Assessment Appeals as a regular member? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have reappointments to the Board of Assessment Appeals. We have
Mayor.
Thumbs up.
He's here. Peter is here.
Oh, Mr. Bain. Are you, oh, okay. Congratulations, welcome aboard, and thank you for wanting to torture yourself. But thank you for your willingness to serve.
I've heard the torture is pleasant.
Good. Thank you. So next we have reappointments. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 reappointments to the Board of Assessment Appeals. 2 as regular. We'll vote on those first. Mr. Donald Overton and Mr. Steve Scattabaccia. Do I have a motion?
I'd like to move both of those.
Mr. Freyer.
Mr. Overton has been a member of the board. It's another term that he's going to be serving. He's been on the board since 2001. He has an expansive experience in the real estate area, and he's willing to put in another 30 years. Mr. Scattamacci, I'll do both of them at the same time. Mr. Scattamacci is a 32-year resident of Norwalk and is also in the real estate business, and he's been very active in the community, being a mentor with Aspire and also with the Norwalk mentor program.
Good. Any further comment or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. We have 3 members of the Board of Assessment Appeals alternate appointments. We have Megan Douglas, Harriet Petrides, and Ashley Petrides. We'll move them all together. Do I have a motion? Mr. Prayer.
Yeah, I'd also just like to point out that Megan Douglas is a product of Norwalk Public Schools, having gone to Rowayton School, Rowton, as well as Brian McMahon. She's been a very successful young woman in the real estate business, being the partner in a local real estate firm, and is very much versed in the real estate business. Harriet Purdy's and Ashley Purdy's, also both in the real estate business for a combination of over 30 years. And again, being a very intricate part of the Board of Appeals, I'm sorry. And we'll continue on through 2026.
Thank you. Any further comment or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. And last but not least, we have 3 appointments as reappointments, I'm sorry. The Redevelopment Agency, we have Lisa Cooper, John Igneri, and Mary Peniston. We'll move them all together. Do I have a motion? Ms. Smith.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to make that motion and support the reappointment of Lisa Cooper, Human Services Council professional, where she has worked as Director of Mid-Fairfield Substance Abuse Coalition and Director of Community Prevention Task Force, and has done a great job on the Redevelopment Agency. Also, John Igneri, our good friend who has served his time here on the Common Council. He's been on all the committees. He was council president, majority leader on the WPCA. He still serves on the WPCA. I have the honor of serving with him there. 6th taxing district commissioner. And so we're really thankful for his willingness to continue to serve. And Mary Peniston, a nonprofit executive and philanthropy and financial professional. And so I'd just like to move all those appointments.
Okay. Any further comment or discussion?
Yes, I'd just like to say a few words about John Igneri. I've known John for over 35 years. He is really dedicated to Norwalk. As you can see from his the long list President Smith just went through. He is also a graduate of that great university in New York, St. John's, that's on a rampage right now.
Yeah, they beat
going to the
UConn
NCAA.
yesterday. We're not in favor of that.
And I just thought I'd bring that up, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry. They didn't just beat them.
They took 'em out for a run.
Any further comment or
The
discussion?
comment about you. Yeah.
I'm sorry. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. That's all the resignations, appointments, and reappointments. Next, we just have a couple of remarks. We kind of introduced today the new animal control facility down at the park by DPW. We had a anonymous donation of $331,000 to help bring that into compliance. It was in compliance, but now we've just done it. We've made it a state of the art with the new HVAC systems with overhead doors that open up and allow the animals to have greater breathing, more natural air. It's really, really quite nice if you want to go down and take a look at it. We saw some of the pups down there today. They're just kind of looking at them, it kind of breaks your heart to see them there. One, unfortunately, was an abused animal and is being held there. And to give you an idea of what happens down there sometimes, the animal came in probably looking like it was about to pass away. In 5 days, with proper treatment, they put on 10 pounds. The animal is happy, tail wagging. The owner, unfortunately, was charged with abuse of the animal, not unfortunately. And the court is now determining whether that pup can go back home. If you want to take a look, maybe somebody will have an opportunity to adopt her. She's very friendly. I think she's actually happier at the pound than she would be where she was. So, and I always encourage, if you have the time, adopt a rescue dog. The dog, and I think most people who have a dog or a cat or another animal knows that you get love back, that you give love to the animal, you get love back 10 times over. So we have our furry friends. So it's really nice. I want to thank Police Chief Walsh for his commitment to the project. I want to thank our animal control officers and certainly the anonymous donation. I guess they know who she is, but she doesn't want to be identified. So we grant her wish. Again, go down and take a look. On another note, Friday, we'll be holding a groundbreaking ceremony for the new Community Recreation Center down on 98 South Main Street. This has been a long time coming. That building has been set, not abandoned, but it hasn't been being used to its full potential. And at one point, that was a building, and a lot of people here remember Neon and how people could go there and get services that they needed. And it was help for the community. And with this location, it was located in an area where a lot of people did need assistance and help. Well, we're renovating it. We're partnering with the Mill River YMCA to bring back programs to the building. We're going to have a basketball court, the building a house, a gym with the capacity for multiple sports, including tennis, pickleball, and basketball. It will also house numerous recreation and parks programs that promote fitness, friendship, and personal well-being. Creating this indoor recreation facility has been a top priority of our administration, and it follows our 10-year recreation and parks master plan, which we've just studied. This is going to be a $15 million project. So we're investing a lot of money in trying to help people help themselves and get wholesome activities, as well as being able to find resources that they need to help them live a life of quality. So I invite the council members to come down on Friday, and I would like to invite the public to come down and take a look and tour and see some of the things that we're going to be doing down there. And with that, I will then turn this back over to our council president, Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I do just want to take a moment to thank all of the parents and administrators who spoke tonight. Everyone seems to have cleared out of the chambers here. However, there's quite a presence online. And so your voice is very important. Wasn't that long ago that I was you speaking on behalf and advocating for my own child's education. And so your voice is important. You're your child's most important advocate. We do have a little business to take care of before we get on to the budget discussions, and so I will turn it over to Councilmember Goldstein to read the consent calendar tonight.
Thank you, Council President Smith, and I join everything you said about appreciating how parents, students, and administrators came out and spoke. We appreciate all of your comments and take it to heart, and appreciate that you showed up on a Tuesday night to make your voice heard. So with that, the reading of the consent calendar, and I will do this as quickly as possible. 7A, Finance and Claims Committee. 1, narrative on tax collections dated February 2025. 2, monthly tax collectors report dated January 2025. 4, authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Gov Connection Inc. in an amount not to exceed $112,619.87 for Microsoft Office 365 licenses renewal amount allocation noted. B, ordinance, approve changes to Chapter 115, Commission on the Status of Women. C, Recreation, Parks, and Cultural Events. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into an agreement for the use of Veterans Park and the immediate surrounding grounds by Norwalk Police Emerald Society for their St. Patrick's Day Parade to be held next week, Saturday, March 8th, 2025, from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., setup time by 10 a.m., Saturday with tear down by 1 p.m., approximately 200 people. 2, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into an agreement for the use of Taylor Farm and immediate surrounding grounds by Friends of Norwalk Dogs for their Marty Paws to be held on Saturday, March 22nd, 2025, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. with a rain date of Sunday, March 23rd, and Paws and Pride to be held on Saturday, June 14th, 2025, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. with a rain date of Sunday, June 15th, approximately 70 people. 3, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into the agreement for the use of Veterans Park and the immediate surrounding grounds by Norwalk Junior Lacrosse for their Pound on the Sound to be held on Saturday, May 31st and Sunday, June 1st, 2025, from 8:15 a.m. to 7:15 p.m. Setup time by 6:15 a.m. Saturday with tear down by Sunday at 9:15 p.m. Approximately 300 people. 4, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into the agreement for the use of Calf Pasture Beach parking lot and the immediate surrounding grounds by the Coachman for their Calf Pasture Beach cruise to be held on Tuesday, May 13th, June 10th, July 8th, and August 12th, 2025, from 4:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. with rain dates of Wednesday, May 14th and June 11th, and Tuesday, July 15th, and Friday, August 15th, approximately 150 people. 5, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into agreement for the use of Veterans Park and immediate surrounding grounds by Vox Church for their Easter egg hunt to be held on August 12th, 2025, from 7:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. with a rain date of Saturday, April 19th, approximately 480 people. 6, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into agreement for the use of Rowayton School Field and immediate surrounding grounds by Rowayton PDA for their Rowayton Elementary School Carnival to be held on Friday, May 2nd, 2025, from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. and Saturday, May 3rd, 2025, from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. with a rain date of Sunday, May 4th. Setup time by 10 a.m. Wednesday, April 30th, with tear down by Sunday, May 4th, approximately 3,000 people. 7, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to sign any and all documents required for the partnership agreement with Keep America Beautiful as it relates to the Green Workforce Training Project, quote, National Urban Forestry Expertise Comes to Norwalk, a Green Week Workforce Program, end quote, awarded through Keep America Beautiful by the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. 8, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into an agreement for the use of Veterans Park and immediate surrounding grounds by Norwalk Seaport Association for their Oyster Festival to be held Friday, September 5th, from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m., Saturday, September 6th, from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Sunday, September 7th, from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., setup time by 8 a.m. Saturday, August 16th, with tear down by 10 p.m. Tuesday, September 30th, approximately 40,000 people. E, Public Works. Authorize Mayor Harry W. Rilling to execute any and all documents necessary to accept an easement over 1012 Lubrano Place, Norwalk, Connecticut, for the purposes of access and maintenance. In fact, that is the consent calendar.
Thank you, Councilmember Goldstein,
Very
for
well.
that reading.
This almost
You've heard the consent calendar. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? That carries unanimously, and I will turn it back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Item number 7A3, Mr. Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 7A3 reads as follows: recommend fiscal year 2025 to 2026 operating budget, maximum limit on total appropriations pursuant to section 10-5A of the city charter. Whereas section 10-5A of the Norwalk Charter requires that a majority of the common council vote to establish a specific amount on local appropriations during the process of establishing the next fiscal year's operating budget. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the common council of the city of Norwalk that the maximum limit on the total appropriation for the city of Norwalk general fund for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025 shall be no more than $450,004,084.
400.
Let me repeat that. $450,481,097. Be it further resolved that the result of this vote and resolution be forwarded by the clerk of the city of Norwalk to the Board of Estimate and Taxation.
And you would like to speak on that, Mr. Burnett?
Yes, I'd like to comment on that, Mayor.
You have the
Before
floor.
we go. The resolution before the council this evening is attributed to several months of meetings with departments, discussions, public hearings, and reviewing and responding to emails from taxpayers and several stakeholders. The operating budget cap of $450 million represents a 2.5 increase or $5 million increase to the city departments and a 4% increase or $9.3 million increase to the Board of Education for the upcoming fiscal year. It also includes an $8 million drawdown from the general fund balance to provide tax relief to our residents as we continue into year 2 of the phase-in of the tax assessment revaluation. We have been presented with several budget requests, challenges, and priorities in the creation of the operating budget. However, decisions have to be made as to what items are funded now and others that we plan to phase in during future budgets. We have to set priorities. The next step in the operating budget process will consist of the Board of Estimate and Taxation conducting line item reviews with each city department and the Board of Education to further understand their operating budget needs and recommend the appropriations accordingly. The culmination of these appropriations will result in the final mill rate distribution across the taxing districts. Our Chief Financial Officer, Jared Smith, is here with us to address any questions that council members might have. And I encourage the council to support the operating budget cap as presented and continue to move our great city forward in the best interest of our Norwalk taxpayers.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt, if you come to the podium in case anybody has any questions. At this point in time, we'll open up the floor to questions or comments as Ms. Smith.
Wait for Jared to make the podium. I have just a question to start, and then I think I'll have comments later.
Sure.
Jared, could you just talk to us about the change in the property tax on automobiles and how that's affecting the tax increase? You know, I'm curious, like, you know, is it like, you know, like a little tiny percentage of the increase to the taxes, or I'm just, you know, because I don't know how many, I'm not sure how many of our residents are really aware that that's having a significant effect on the tax increase.
Sure. No,
Okay,
I appreciate the question too, because it's not a small change.
Mhm.
It's a pretty dramatic change for what it is. And and how it impacts motor vehicle taxation. And I think it's going to be this is going to be a process of getting the word out to residents over the next weeks and months leading up to when the tax goes into place. So, you know, I'm happy to continue to talk about this and make sure that everybody understands exactly what's happening. So there's two components to it. One is that the tax rate, the mill rate on motor vehicles has to be at least as low as the lowest overall tax rate, real estate tax rate. And so what does that mean? So what does that mean for Norwalk? In particular, it had a large effect on Norwalk in particular because of the structure of the tax rates prior to this change. So the motor vehicle rate was at 32.46 before, and the real estate rate was around 23, let's say, you know, different districts and different rates. So we're having to reduce the motor vehicle rate under that, which we've set at 22. We set at a rate of 22. So that means we're going from 32.46 down to 22. It's almost a third of the total grand list and a third of the rate. So, and then, you know, kind of play that out and how that translates into tax bills. In this case, it's a savings to taxpayers because the rate is going to be lower. The rate that gets applied to the motor vehicles is going to be lower. So it'll result in about $10 million less in tax payments from residents related to motor vehicles. And so it's helpful in a sense that you know, we know about the phase in and real estate taxes. And so it can be viewed as an offset to that, an offset to the increases in the real estate taxes. Second component, and both of these, I should have said this at the outset, these are mandates from the state. We don't really have a choice in these, in how we implement these things. So the second piece of it is a change in the methodology for valuing cars. It used to be find the Blue Book value, and that's what you would use as to figure out the value of each motor vehicle. What's happening now and the way we have to adjust now is that you look at the MSRP of a car, whenever the car was first put out to sale, what the MSRP was at that time, and then it's a yearly reduction in that amount each year. There is some kind of up-to-date news about that that may change and will be up to the Common Council to potentially change. The way prior to if this goes into effect, if the governor ends up signing the bill, the legislature voted to make some changes to the methodology over the last couple of days. So what's in law currently is that you would start at the first year of that vehicle would be 85% of the MSRP of the vehicle. That's the value of it in that very first year that it hits the market. And then you apply the mill rate to that. What the change that the legislature voted for upped it by 5%. So instead of being at 85% of the value, it would be 90%. In either case, whether you elect to number one, if the governor signs it, and number two, if you elect to adopt that second methodology and that second schedule, they'll reduce by 5% a year. So the 90 in the second year would become 85, and 80, 75, so on and so forth. And then the what's in law now is starting at 85% going down to 80, 75. So those are the two changes. That change, the change in the methodology as it is now in law is worth about $2 million in tax revenue. So that's a reduction in the amount that taxpayers would pay to the tune of about $2 million. And so together, those two changes are about $12 million in revenue lost to the town, but a break for the taxpayers.
Questions or comments from the council? Ms. Josie Eichner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I want to start by thanking all the parents and administrators and other folks who came out. I think that it is incredibly valuable to have people engaged in this process. And I particularly appreciated those folks who talked about how hard it is to understand the process and wanting more information. And I, will say, among other things, reach out. Like, I think we are all very happy to talk to you. This is why we do this. We really care about this, and we would be really happy to sit down with anyone. I think individually, I certainly will speak for myself and say I'd be happy to sit down with anyone individually and walk you through what we look at, the factors that we consider, the information that is available. I heard a couple of parents talk about the wish that they could better understand where the spending is coming from. And I recommend that everyone find online their copy of the school board's tentative approved operating budget, so you can get a great deal of information about what's in the budget. And I'll talk in a second about what I see and pay attention to in that budget and how it is impacting my decisions on this budget cap. But I also want people to understand where this council sits in this process. This is a very complicated set of interlocking government bodies. I hear the frustration. I often feel the frustration. Much of that is not of our making. State law requires that only the school board can make determinations about their how their budget is spent. So it's a bizarre situation where they decide what the spending line allocations are, but we set the cap. But then the BET, under the city charter, actually decides what the line items allocations are for the city side. So we are put in a bizarre position as the council of having to set a budget cap without actually being able to determine the line items that go into that. So when you feel like it's this strange position where you're talking about a number in the abstract, I personally feel that way too. We are talking about a number in the abstract because we have no authority over any of the line items that make up that number. So, again, there are aspects of that I think could be done differently. And I encourage folks to learn about the Charter Revision Commission if you're interested. At the same time, we on the city council do sit in the interesting position of having to look broad picture. And what that encourages us to do is to think about where does this budget fit in the bigger set of factors that the city is currently facing. So for me personally right now, I am deeply concerned about the chaos at the federal level. We don't know what is going to happen. I heard folks talk very much about the rainy day fund. It is obviously on all of our minds. You heard that there is an $8 million drawdown already from the rainy day fund. I worry very much that if this year feels rainy, next year is going to feel like a hurricane. It is possible that we are going to lose federal funding. We have taken a strong position in the city that I am very proud of. We have stood up for the things that we care about and we believe in. We don't know what the consequences of that may be. We don't know what the consequences of that may be for the state. We have been really lucky to be in a state that has stood up for our residents. There may be consequences. We don't know. Quite frankly, I have deep concerns that the decisions being made at the federal level right now are going to have enormous consequences for the overall national economy. That could impact our budget for next year. So we have to be very cautious that we don't expend our rainy day fund too fast until we have a better understanding of what the national landscape looks like. Second, as folks have, again, talked about, and I think is really important for people to understand, the revaluation is required by state law. It's not a choice of ours, but it has enormous consequences because of the ways in which property value in Norwalk have increased. So we have to grapple with the fact people's taxes are going to go up about $1,000 on average across the board. In some places, they're going to go up significantly more than that across our city. That is with the 4% for the schools. So we have to be very cognizant of the costs and consequences for who we force out of the city, but with the tax increases. So we are all, I think, very much wrestling with the fact that our schools are doing a terrific job serving our students. And what we don't want to do is drive out the very families that our schools are doing such a great job serving. So we have to really balance those kinds of needs. And then the other piece that I will mention to the parents who, have been told that there are drastic cuts on the table, and we are obviously concerned about that. At the same time, we have heard this narrative before and not necessarily seen those cuts come to fruition in past years. If you look at this, at the tentative approved operating budget that the school board passed, there, and I can recommend it's page 61 and page 64, the pages I look most closely at when I start looking at the school's budget. I look at the enrollment projections and I look at the staffing. The projections from the school board were 150 fewer students next year, and that 9.5% increase included an increase of 15 positions, including 6 administrators. So I don't know what 4% exactly is going to do, because I have not seen those numbers from the school board yet, but at the same time, I know that that 9.5% actually included significant increases in staffing despite decreases in projected enrollment. So I think that we have seen, again, in the past, situations where there has been a lot of concern about potentially having to cut school positions that have not come to fruition. I think 4%, meets the contractual increases. It meets, many of the needs that have been identified. I do encourage parents to speak up at the state level for excess cost grants. That's something that is, a major part of funding our special education services. Use your voice and advocate for state funding that will meet our needs. There are other ways that you can channel your concerns into really advocating for our students. But I think at this point, for me personally, the 4% has felt like it has struck a balance given all of the uncertainties we're facing, and our need to do right by our students. And I very much believe that the Norwalk Public Schools are doing a terrific job for their students. Someone asked, I think, who of us has kids? I have a child in Norwalk Public Schools. I have a child who has benefited from the reading intervention program. I am deeply invested in what our schools are doing. I'm deeply proud of the work that our schools are doing. And, certainly we'll be keeping a close eye on what the consequences are. But based on what we have seen so far, I feel like this budget is striking a balance of trying to be prepared to handle the many things possibly coming down. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was, sorry, long, but I really wanted to get that out because I do really want the parents to understand that we hear you and we are thinking very much about these questions. This is not an easy decision and not one we take lightly.
Thank you. Further comments, discussion? Ms. Harris.
First of all, Nora, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, Nora, I'm not gonna be that eloquent. I'm telling you now.
Oh, yes, you will.
Yes.
I want to start off by saying to all of the departments of the city, thank you. We all sit on our individual committees and you have come to us and showed us where you are cutting and how you are making ends meet. And I have to say to every department head, thank you so very, very, very much for helping us try to solve, it's all of our problem. And I just want to acknowledge those departmental heads and give them their kudos because they have done the hard work. They have gone line by line and they have understood the impact of every dollar they have had to cut. And the mayor's team has asked them, and to our understanding, they have done it and are still doing it, are still looking at their budgets and still seeing where they can tighten up and do better for all citizens. Those individuals that were here today, I wish you would have stayed in chamber and not leave, but I understand because sometimes I want to leave chamber. But I have to say a couple of things. Words matter. And what I hear people keep saying is cut. We're not cutting anything. The law doesn't allow us to cut the BOE budget. So we're not cutting anything. Our cap is really, the 4% is an increase above what they got last year. So please, I don't know where that narrative came from, but I would like to take that opportunity to say, we're not cutting the funding that is already at our schools. Yes, I'm a parent. This is my last child. I'm my last child in our public schools. Yes, my child has received intervention. My child has received PPTs and all of these great things. But one thing I could say, I've had more positive experiences in Norwalk Public Schools. I've had some negatives, but I've had more positive experience in Norwalk Public Schools than I've had negative. And I really chalk that up to there are some wonderful professional outstanding administrators, teachers, janitors, lunch people, security guards that choose each and every day to walk in those buildings and take care of our most precious gift, which is our children. But in saying that, I have to also be honest. We do prioritize our school system. And let me explain to everybody that may not know how we have prioritized our school system. Last year, we knew that we were in a crunch. So this committee came together with the mayor's office and made it a special appropriation for special ed. We prioritize our school. We prioritize our school by building new schools and updating new schools. We prioritize our schools by increasing, we just passed a bill to increase all of the security cameras. We passed a bill to cover the SROs and all that stuff. So outside of the BOE's budget, this body, this August body, prioritize and support the schools more than I think the average person realized. It was on the agenda tonight. Oh, it's not, I'm just clicking off. But you'll see later on in the agenda a night of us funding a nonprofit that directly gives services to Norwalk Public Schools. In the Community Service Committee, there were many grants given out to nonprofits that give direct services to Norwalk Public Schools. So as a city, as the administration under Mayor Railing, as this common council, we prioritize our students every time we sit at this table, because we understand the importance of what they need to be successful. None of us don't want them to be successful. We want them all to grow and develop and blossom. But I have some problems with the narrative that has been brought forth. I also have a child who has severe medical issues. One of my colleagues were just talking about that before we got here. And when it first came out that we will cut nurses, I don't even think that's lawful. I don't think you can cut a nurse in a school where you have children that have everything from asthma to seizures. But it is told to the parents. And as a parent, I would be scared too, as with a child that has a severe medical issue, that there is not a trained staff member that could assist my child. But that narrative went out, not from us, but that narrative went out. The other narrative went out that the school, the class sizes will increase. I think there's a state statute. I'm not quite sure. We can Google, but I think there's a state statute that says that a class size can only be a certain size. And then on top of that, we have multiple unions in our school system that ensures that our teachers are not being taken advantage of. And my colleague can attest to that. So we're not going to have these exorbitant number of class sizes, because there are some safety measures put into our systems to add that. But I understand hearing that, I went, huh? I mean, no. But I Googled. I Googled on the phone to get some general information. We have to stop trying to get people to come out by scaring them. The truth is beautiful as it is. We don't have to scare people to speak. The truth is, as the CFO says, we are getting less taxes. We're asked to do more with less. We have not backed down from that challenge, but we are realistic in what we can do. And it's not that we don't want to give the school more money, because essentially we are giving them more money. We're giving them 4% more than what they got last year. But it's the school system's priority, it's the school system's decision of how they're going to make and what decisions they're going to make and what they're going to do with that. If I was a parent, I am a parent, but I have to be careful because I can't say too much. But if I was a parent that did not sit in this seat, my conversation would be with every board BOE member. My conversation would be in those meetings and say, hey, can you prioritize keeping our DINA students? My son's DINA student is marvelous. That woman over a planet something, because she's marvelous. But the conversations need to be, if this is the pot of money that you are being given, how can we make sure we keep those crucial individuals in place? There's a line item in the Board of Ed's budget that bothers me every year, and we can't never get clarity. It's called fringe benefits. I'm still waiting to understand what a fringe benefit is. And it's a good chunk of money. If we took that fringe benefit, could they possibly fund some people that they have been asked to cut? So I think, again, I recognize the heart of our parents. I am so proud of the students that decided to speak. It's not easy speaking in public, and they did a marvelous job. And I know their parents were there to support, but I think our public school system gets some credit for that too. But the micro level is what we need to be looking at. This is the card that we are given. How are we going to do our best with the cards that we are getting, and coming and beating up on us? We can take it and we love you nonetheless, but we make decisions across the city for the benefit of every city. When I sat in the finance committee, I heard many people get up and said, it's okay, I'll pay 200 extra more dollars. But that's 200 extra more dollars above the increase. It's not just $200. But what about those citizens who are fighting every day just to pay what they already have to pay? Someone sent me a picture, and eggs was $12.93 a dozen, and Costco's were 25 cents. There are some citizens that are struggling where they are. And for you to say, well, I can pay 200, that's great. I'm so happy you're in that financial position. But we have to consider what you can pay and what those people that cannot pay. And we try very hard to come in a happy medium. This is my first time sitting in this seat that I am not raising an amendment to raise the budget for the BOE. I have never done it. This is a historical moment. People take their pictures. It's historical. But I cannot in good conscience ask for amendment when we do not know what's coming down the road. And I have always said, okay, that rainy day fund is so big, let's do something. But as my colleague said so eloquently, we have to not only think about this year, but we have to think for the next 4 years. And so I support the recommended cap that has been presented tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, and you're eloquent as well. Ms. Smith.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Nadjelski Eichner, thank you so much. You just summed everything up so well for our parents. It is such a complicated process that we have, and it's important that we get that information out. And Ms. Ayers, I just really, really well done. First of all, I want to thank our city departments. Because they worked really, really hard to scrub down their budgets. And I want to acknowledge them because I've been on this council for 8 years. I've worked with a lot of the chiefs. Every single one of them work so hard and are so responsible with our taxpayers' dollars. They really care. And so I want to acknowledge that. I also want to acknowledge that, you know, we're going to be losing some city services because of the budget cuts. And some of the same people who come and you know, are upset about the funding for the schools are also some of the same people who come and complain that, you know, there are other things that we're not taking care of in the city. So I think that we need to acknowledge that. I want to also announce, I don't know if people saw it in the news today, but our state legislature passed the excess cost sharing, and it looks like Norwalk is going to be getting $829,000 in this fiscal year for special education. So that was just announced. I confirmed it with Bob Duff this afternoon. So that's happening, and that's really good news for our schools. I mentioned earlier that my children, I was here, you know, speaking out on behalf of my kids. That, you know, Jane Wilkins was talking about what it was like. Somebody brought it up, Manny Rivera, you know, he was here. It was so bad. Joe, you're still here. Joe Gianturco. You know, when we worked at Bonus together, my first couple of years, we had no copy machines. We you know, buy our own books, things like that. It was really bad. Really, really bad. And I say this year after year. I want to thank you, Harry Rilling, for your commitment to our schools. You have literally worked to double the budget. You've committed to building schools, and our schools have been transformed. And you've really done that. And I really want to thank you. I do this year after year, but I can't not say it again.
Thank you.
So thank you. So in addition to, you know, all three of my children going through our schools, I taught in our schools. I know what it's like to work in our schools when we have nothing, and I know what it's like to work in our schools when we have resources. And so I really want to share that. And one of the things that I think is I have to acknowledge it was the joint finance meeting when Mary Jordan, the union president, Joe, one of the union representatives also, both of whom I worked with opponents for years. I've known them for years. I consider them my friends, my colleagues. When they stand here and tell me that they are concerned about the spending on the, the superintendent's budget and the spending, I hear that because I am a friend of teachers. And I want to make sure that the funding is going to our kids and that it's going to the teachers so that they have the resources to take care of our kids, because our kids are the most important thing that we have. So I found that really disturbing. So like Ms. Ayers has said, it's really, really important, parents, that you go and you speak to the BET at the public hearing, because they have, a big role in this process. And very important to speak to the Board of Education, because they are the ones who do make the decisions. So that's really, really important part of this process. And then, I've got a few other things to say. Society has put all of its ills on our schools. All the responsibility for not just educating, but raising kids, mental health services, physicals. I mean, like, Heather, I'm looking at you, you're still living it, right? You're still living it. And it's just
special ed teacher, right?
Yeah, it's just never enough. It will never be enough. And one of the parents talked about how, we need to start looking at how we fund education differently, because we're still dealing with this, post-pandemic, numerous post-pandemic issues, but we have to look at, we have to get more creative somehow, because the schools cannot handle this. It's too much, and it's too much burden on our taxpayers. So we do have to get creative, and I agree with that. And I'm not saying I have any answers right now, but we've got to look at that. And I want to make a couple of analogies for parents, because I think that this can help us understand. And the first one is something I learned from my good friend, Doug Hempstead, who I served with on the council for a couple of years. And, when I first came on, I was, was really, learning and fighting for, funding for education, but he put things in perspective for me. He just said, think about your home. At home, you have a certain amount of income, right? And that, you have, this is your budget and this is what you can afford. You've got your daily budget, your weekly budget, your monthly budget, save some away. So maybe you can take a vacation, have some leisure, but then, something happens at home and you've got to borrow some money because you've got a, plumbing leak or need a new roof or whatever it happens to be. That gets added to your monthly payment. So, I think if you can think of the decisions we have to make in that way, make it real at home, I think that can be helpful. And then the other analogy that I want to make for you is when times are tough at home, where do we cut? As a family, we do not cut anything to our kids if we can help it. We are the ones, the parents, who take the hit. We can do without, but our kids can't. And so we make sure our kids get the funding. And I asked this of the Board of Education and the superintendent and her cabinet at the meeting when they presented their budget. There were several of us council members and some BET members there. I asked them this to, because we have to take care of our kids, on every different level, to please look within. Do not cut services or positions that directly affect our kids. So that's what I have to say. And I am supporting this budget.
Further comments or discussion? Mr. Singh.
Yeah, this time I'm gonna echo everybody's comments about really supporting the children. I have two boys, and I'll do anything for them. But if you look at like the budget, the Board of Education is over 50% of the budget. And the city of Norwalk, like in the city side, doing like a 2.5 increase. The Board of Ed is like a 4% increase. So it's kind of disingenuous to say that we're not investing in the children. And I mean, I want to thank the students that spoke. I couldn't imagine a dean of student. I had a dean of student, Mr. Rick McQuaid, at Merrimack Elementary School, that I couldn't imagine not having him in my life. And we're still close to this day. So I get it. But I think when we set the cap, we're pretty much saying what the taxpayers can afford to pay. And what I get out on the street and when I talk to people is, like, my lease is up and my landlord's talking about raising the rent by this amount, and I might not be able to afford to live here. And with all of the changes that's happening in Norwalk, the people who worked here and went to school here and lived here, they deserve to benefit from what's going on in this great city. I'm fortunate to still be able to live here, but a lot of people that I went to school with and graduated with, they can't afford to live here. And when we talk about raising the taxes and the impact that it has on people, it's a direct impact on people who are already feeling like Councilwoman Nares spoke about. Grocery bills are going up, utilities are going up, everything is going up, and then we hitting them with the taxes. And to say that, oh, I'll pay $200 more, it's people, there's nowhere to find that in their budget. And if they do, they're gonna move to a city who, unfortunately, the cities don't have the resources that we have, and the school system isn't as great as no public school systems. So that's why I support this budget. I actually would like to see it down a little bit more, but I know that the departments cut as much as they can. And I know that we're gonna pass it along to the BET, who's really gonna do the hard work to go line by line with each department to do it. So I get the sentiments of the people that spoke today. My wife, when she got the messaging from the Board of Ed and PTO, she said, you gotta give the school more money. And then when I spoke about it, like, well, you want the taxes to go up this month? She kind of understood. So the messaging is definitely disingenuous on the Board of Ed side, and I would like to see that get better. But I support this budget, and thank you, Mayor, for all that you've been doing, especially with education. Nobody's been doing it like that. Thank you.
Comments, discussions? Mr. Goldstein.
I just want to say, I want to start off by saying how proud I am of what my colleagues have said tonight, many of whom, the three of whom have spoken, 4 of them, all of whom are parents or have had kids go to the Norwalk Public Schools. While I have not had kids, I don't have kids or have kids with the Norwalk Public Schools, we all have skin in this game because schools are important for no matter what walk of life you come from. If you have children, if you don't have children, the quality and power of our school system drives so much in terms of the value in our city. So I just, first of all, want to make sure that that is clearly established. I think about how many people have come out to various public hearings over the last couple of years and have advocated for everything from increased paving, complete streets, increased sidewalks, everything from making sure that police and fire receive adequate funding, or that special appropriations are made in time when times are tough. We have, when it comes to the budget, and our colleagues all here, all of whom have been on the Finance Committee, obviously Chair Greg Burnett, and others know that this is a balancing act. And the thing that we are balancing is being able to strike the balance between what we want, right, and what we can afford. And the work that all the departments do to strike that balance is incredibly commendable, and I agree wholeheartedly with what my colleague Barbara Smith said about how city departments work tirelessly to make this happen. And every year there are great programs that either get delayed or have to be cut down, because the most important thing is creating conditions as best we can for people to afford to live in. Norwalk is a city where 75% of its public workforce doesn't live in Norwalk. That's insane. That should not be happening. That's a problem. That's one that we should be solving. Look, we came off an election in 2024 where the biggest issue was cost of living. And I walked into 2 different stores today, which had egg shortage notices on the cash register, where they were charging an extra $1 or $2. Because if you're selling eggs, or if you're selling, even a meal, that's an extra hit to the business, and that businesses are vital to our community. We are in the second year of a phase-in where our residential property taxes, about 75% of our tax income, where our commercial tax revenue is at around 23-24%. Like Jared Schmidt is probably saying, "Oh my God, his numbers are wrong," but I don't think I'm that far. I guess what I'm trying to say is that this is an incredible balancing act that we have to do every year. I so commend the parents and students and administrators who came out and spoke, and I'm genuinely heartbroken that, and because this is my 4th budget cycle, I've never seen this many principals come in and speak before us about how many positions they had to cut, because I'm assuming they received a message that they had to cut those positions from the superintendent's office, and that genuinely breaks my heart, and that's a position they shouldn't have been put in my personal opinion. And I hope that as the budget process continues, that the superintendent and her team and the Board of Education work together to make sure that cuts don't go to affect students. That if there are central office cuts or cuts to non-student facing positions that need to be made, that those cuts be made first. And if that's not the case, they should be held accountable. Again, this is a balancing act. One that I believe my colleagues have sort of so deftly explained how we have to navigate, and we have to think about the most vulnerable members of our community. I will be supporting this item, and I think it's so important that we continue to strike this balance from here on out.
Further comment?
Lisa.
It's done.
I just wanted to make a clarification for some of the parents that were here that spoke very eloquently, and the kids that are coming up to Norwalk High School. I was really excited to see such well-spoken kids come up. But I just wanted to clear up a misconception. Special education, and I'm a special education teacher, is a right. It's not something that can be cut. So parents that are afraid that their kids with special needs are not going to be receiving services, that would put our city in a huge position of liability. So please don't worry about that. If anything, as special education teachers, we may have larger caseloads, which makes it a little more difficult, maybe a lot more difficult, to do everything that we would love to do. So we will need support if that happens. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that it's not just the students who aren't making adequately really progress or with special health needs. The gifted and talented program, the gifted and talented is also a special education service. So, if that gets cut, there's a liability there too. So parents, you do have rights, and there are, roadways to circumvent that happening. I am very disheartened that those threats are happening now. We haven't even voted on the budget, and parents are already upset about things that they're being told are going to be cut when the decisions haven't even been made. So I find it very disingenuous. I mean, I understand that they have to make plans going forward, but without any decision, us having made decisions, without BET having made decisions, I don't like that parents are put in a position of being made anxious at this point. So I would hope that would stop. Thank you.
Mr. Freire.
Well, I think Ms. Shanahan might have been before me.
Either way, I can go ladies first, right? Because my remarks can be very
I
brief.
can't see your hand very well. I saw Mr. Freire. He's on the priority side.
No worries. I was just going to say my remarks are going to be very brief because I really believe that my colleagues have covered all of the important ground and very eloquently, and I'm very grateful to all of the comments that my colleagues have made. And this is a particularly difficult budget year, and Nora's comments to the effect of not knowing what federal support we'll have in coming years is very, very concerning. So I really am worried about that. But the one point I just want to make personally, as hard as I have been working with city employees and as much as I care for the teachers, I know how hard our city employees work. I know how hard our teachers work, all on behalf of the residents of Norwalk, and I want to thank them in this very difficult budget year. Certainly what we can afford to pay isn't necessarily what we would like to pay them, and to support them in the hard work that they do on our behalf. So I just want to make that point about how grateful we are for our city staff in general and how difficult it is. And also to acknowledge our residents that, we really are reaching the limits of our tolerance for increased taxes. We're doing the very best we can, and it's a very hard balancing act, as all of our colleagues have said. So I just wanted to make those comments in support of this budget cap at this time, and appreciate the work that the BET will do to make sure that if there's any further savings to be found, that they would find it.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Prater.
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments to make. I think that every year we come to this point, and it's painful task to try to provide all the funds that we need to operate the city, and yet also educate our children. And every year we say, well, in past years we said it was going to be different. It's going to be different. This year was different. This year was very different than we've had in the past. Through Mr. Burnett in organizing joint meetings with the Board of Ed and the Finance Committee. We had a number of meetings going back as far as, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, but I think it was November or December, where we started looking at what the budget was. And several of the council members were there with me, and I remember clearly saying that this is something that we have to work together on. We have to be innovative. We have to think outside of the box, and not just go blindly down the road and say that's the way it's going to be. I've worked through I think it's 5 or 6 budget cycles now. Some when I was on the BET, and since also joining the Common Council. What I've seen is that every year we come to the precipice that we're going to have to let teachers go, we're going to have to let guidance counselors go, nurses go, etc. Superintendent Estrella and Mr. Azamonte are really skilled, very good managers. Every single year when we're on the precipice, they do come through. They come in under the cap that we've given them. And in some cases, not so much this year, but in previous years, come up with a surplus at the end of the year. So I have all the confidence in the world that they're going to be able to deal with this budget crisis that we're looking at today and come out at the other side fine. And not lose any student-facing teachers or any kind of student-facing employees. The other comment I just wanted to make was on the rainy day fund. We have dipped into the rainy day fund. We've dipped into it to the extent that it's right at the borderline of where we can go. Yeah, it might look like a lot of money, but that rainy day fund, that fund balance that we have, also helps us maintain our bond rating so that we can go build more schools. We can build a new high school. We can build a new elementary school. And so these are really important things, and we want to make sure that that fund balance stays in place, and that we're going to have a solid financial rating, and we can continue to build and build and build throughout the city. That's all I have.
Thank you. Further comment? Oh, I don't, yeah, I don't see him on my screen. Mr. Wiggins.
Yes, I'm here, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Thank you everyone for my colleagues for bringing everything to attention. I feel like this is well, last year it wasn't this clear, the message. We had a lot of disagreements last year, but this was very clear, and it seems like we're all on the same page. We all got the right information. Greg, Jim, you guys really did a great job preparing earlier. I think for some reason it could just be me. It seemed like we started talking about this much earlier, but it could just be me because it was just my first year last year. But I think the way Nora, Nicole really articulated this whole process, I think is very clear to how everything should be and how everything should look. And really what I was going to say was what Jim just said. If last year there was a surplus, and if I'm not mistaken, that surplus can be used, roll over into this year, I think she has everything she needs to be successful. When I say she, I mean Dr. Estrella. So I'm in support of the not cuts like to Nicole point, but just the increase of 4%. So thank you all.
You. Further comment, discussion? I'd just like to add a couple of things if I might. One is, I think we're all proud of this city. We've got a wonderful team here that works extremely hard, trying to do everything we can and strike that balance that we're talking. Every year, I'm at every school at least once, and I'm proud of what I see there. I'm proud of the teachers who work so hard to educate the children. I'm a product of Norwalk Public Schools. 3 of my children were products of Norwalk Public Schools, and 5 of my 7 grandchildren, product of Norwalk Public Schools. And they're doing pretty well. We talk about the rainy day fund, and that was an article in the paper today, and that's why I wanted to mention this. We have an $86 million rainy day fund or fund balance. And as Nora pointed out, as Mr. Joseph Geichter pointed out, Ms. Smith and others pointed out, that we don't know what's happening with this kind of thing that we're looking at with federal dollars that may not be coming to Norwalk for whatever reason. So we're taking $8 million now out of the rainy day fund for this budget, brings it down to 78. Now people are saying, well, take $10 million more. Well, that brings it down to 60. And as Ms. Ayers pointed out, next year we'll have to give them that 10 million plus. So we'll have to take the fund balance again and go down to what, 58? So then we're finding ourselves in real big trouble. It's not wise to use too much of the fund balance, especially when we have what we call minimum budget requirement. We cannot give them less than what we gave them, what we'll give them this year. The other thing I just want to mention is that, I brought every single department head to the table about a month and a half, 2 months ago, when we started the budget process. And I had our CFO there, budget administrator there. And we laid it out. Here's what it's going to look like to the taxpayers of the city of Norwalk. And I said to them, I want you to come in with a 2 to 2.5% increase. And we are at 2.5%, but we may be going down even more when we start to scrub the budget with the Board of Estimate and Taxation, going line by line. And I challenged, I said, look, we're going to give you money for your budget. And you're going to have to live within that money, within that budget. And that's why you're department heads. That's why we pay you to be administrators of your budget. And you know what? If you can't do it, then maybe somebody else should. Because it's critically important. This is a critical time. And this is, I know we say it every year, a difficult budget. This is the most difficult budget year that I've seen. Now, talk about funding Board of Education. This team, my administration from 2013 to today, have increased the Board of Education budget by over $78 million. Over 50% increase over that period of time. And that doesn't count the in-kind services that we provide for the Board of Education, which is probably somewhere around $30 or $40 million when you all is said and done. So we struggle. And I want to thank the parents for coming out because we hear you. And we all feel the same way that you do. We'd love to be able to give as just unlimited amounts of money. But it's been pointed out also, there are things that need to be looked at in the proposed BOE budget. There are things in that budget that raise my eyebrows. A lot of money to be spending in this particular area, and it could be going more towards special ed, it could be going more towards our teachers, going more towards the different kinds of things, mental health things that we need. And as Ms. Ayers also pointed out, we fund these nonprofits around the city that do serve the Board of Education. That's why we fund them. So again, I thank this team, Mr. Burnett, for your leadership as the chairperson of the Finance Committee and calling together the Board of Ed in the city of Norwalk. And everybody who sits on the Finance Department, everybody who sits on all the different committees. We have 2 meetings a month for this body, but you all sit through other meetings 2 and 3 and 4 times additionally a month and work very hard on behalf of the city. So we are moving forward. We've got a wonderful school system. And as we have in the past, if there was some sort of an emergency with the Board of Education, we would rise to the occasion and we would help them get through that emergency. And you can take that to the bank. So again, thank you everybody for all that you do. Thank you to the BET. Thank you to our team here who works very hard and who whispers in my ear that we need to do this, we need to do that. And wait a minute, Mayor, we can't afford this. So again, thank you. That's all I have to say. And if there is no other comment, then I will call the vote. All in favor of item 7A3 on the recommended operating budget cap as proposed in our report. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Now, if I'm not mistaken, thank you. If I'm not mistaken, I think we have 7D1, Ms. Ayers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry.
We have two.
Oh, that's why Jalen has, Mr. Steed. Jalen and Mr. Seed and Mr. Wiggins have to recuse themselves. Ms. Ayers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Railing, to execute any and all agreements, documents, instruments, or amendments as may be necessary with the local prevention council in the amount of $20,000 account noted to the fiduciary positive direction 90 Post Road West, Westport, Connecticut, 06880, care of the NAWA Partnership. I would like to move this item and speak to it, Mr. Mayor.
You have the floor.
This item is something that we, again, prioritize our good people, and we fund every year. The NAWA Partnership takes care of a lot of the education around substance abuse. I'm an 80s baby, so back in the day, we used to have DARE. And DARE used to come and do, but the NAWA Partnership, I'm a DARE student. I love the DARE.
You're a Reverend Child.
Yes, I do. But the NAWA Partnership does a lot of the prevention education and work around that. In addition, they are also the agency that does our Teen Nights Out programming, which has been very successful to help with our young people with their social emotional skills post COVID. So we voted for it unanimously in committee, and we're bringing it here for the council approval.
Thank you. Further discussion? Questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? And we had 2 people recuse themselves. Thank you. And now, I. turn
Motion
the
to
floor-
adjourn.
Shanahan. I guess I turn the floor over to Ms. Shanahan.
Yes.
All in
Motion
favor?
to adjourn, all in favor.
Ellen, raise it from the back.
Opposed? Abstentions? It is 9:47 and we are adjourned. Thank you all for your hard work. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.